Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Donjo number CC100 ZP crash chain zinc finish. So this is what would be called a crash chain. There are generally two types of crash chains. There are those that would be considered commercial quality, and then there would be those like this that would be considered quite light duty. And that would be, certainly appropriate for storm doors, other residential applications like that, very light doors. And really what you're trying to do with a crash chain is simply keep that door from making contact with something that it would be better off it not making contact with. Meaning, you've got a storm door. Imagine if you didn't have a crash chain, the wind caught it, and you have, jealousy style windows in the storm door. I'm thinking of aluminum jealousy window operated storm doors, from the mid 1960s. Very, heavy storm doors, lots of glass in them. You don't want that to come around and crash open into your wall. So a crash chain like this will serve very well to just limit the movement of the door. Now the factory gives us no guidance in terms of how to install this, but we'll make some heads or tails out of it. You can see the spring that's there. It takes quite some strength to really get it to move. There's no doubt. So I would imagine it would absorb some shock quite well. Now this is the mounting pad that they have here. One side is going to go on the jamb. The other side is going to go on the header. It would be my estimation that this would be the header portion that you would install on the header in this flat plate sort of arrangement. I would then have this hook that's included with the other plate, and I would mount this to the jamb so that when the door opens out, it'll be working in this sort of arrangement. Okay. No hard and fast rules about how to install these. You just want to limit the door. Fasteners will be included, some tiny little screws. Not going to be too much in the way of description that I can give you regarding how adequate these screws would end up being. If it was me, I would probably think that through very well. I might opt for some longer screws, maybe some screws that would be of a wood style thread. These are going to be a sheet metal thread. I might want something more appropriate for wood if that's what I was going into. So be mindful to think about the fasteners that you will ultimately use. Crash chains are really not meant to be a piece of equipment that is going to absolutely, reliably, dependably stop the door at a specific degree of opening. They're really meant to mitigate an otherwise potential problem. I've seen crash chains that just got a lot of wind and it has broken the chain, ripped it off the door, things of that nature. The door continued through its opening cycle and hit something or someone, which is not what you want. But this is a residential application. You need to prevent that door from going too far, and this piece of equipment is certainly intended for that application. An overall length from the end of one mounting plate to the end of the other mounting plate, it's about 27 inch or so. The length of the chain itself, about 23 inch. So if I was going to install this, I would, find myself a position 6, 8, 10, 12 inches off of the hinge side on the header, and just you'll have to do a reality check on this, but that's where I would want to mount this. Then I would take my jamb portion, and I would want to keep it up near the top of the door as much as possible, because I don't really want this hanging out too drastically into the opening, because there's really not any position where you're going to be able to install this so that you're not creating an otherwise dangerous scenario. So I had said jamb earlier. It's going to be, of course, the door that this will mount on. So where you're positioning this off the face of the door, when I said jamb, I meant close to the jamb, I suppose. Closer to the jamb so that the chain is really not hanging in the way when you walk through the opening and it's hitting your head. You might also, and what some people will also do, it's not included with this sort of crash chain, but others have it. What sometimes you'll see is a spring that will tie the unit together, just keeping the chain folded up and out of the way. Imagine if you poked a hole or slit this vinyl sleeve and then connected a spring like a storm door spring from here down to here. You could take that and fold it in half to keep the chain tucked up, closer to the top of the door. And of course, when that door went, that spring would of course release, that chain would come out completely. So be mindful that there might be a better way to tailor that based on your application. So 6, 8, 10 inches off the face of the door, maybe closer to the jamb, 6, 8, 10 inches off the header. You get that up there. Have somebody, hold one end on the header. You can take the door and walk around and see where you want it, mark it where you'd like to have it. If there's a storm door closer, be mindful that you want to have this work compatibly with that and not interfere when you're installing it. Okay. So when they say crash chain, we got that part. Zinc finish. That means this is made of steel, and it's going to be zinc coated for corrosion resistance. Is really all it is. And then this vinyl chain cover is really all it is. Typical sort of zinc chain that you'll see here that you can purchase at any hardware store, really. You could also doctor this up a little bit in the sense that you could, and I've done it before. Okay, I'm just pulling this down a little bit. So what you could do is you could, if you wanted to decrease the length of the chain, you could push that up, pinch these two together, and you could force that down and out. Okay, you could then, that chain link that's here, you could grab it over here and fold that in and over, then push that entire apparatus back up through the spring assembly. So push it up and pinch these two together, and you'll be able to force that down, all the way down, like that. And you'll be able to work it all the way down, decrease your chain length, and then push it back up and through, and you'll be back in good shape. So you could decrease the length of the chain that way. I've done that in the past. People have said, oh, it hangs down too low, or I have to severely limit my degree of opening and I don't want the chain hanging so low. Okay, decrease the length of the chain would be a way to do it. You could cut some of it off or just leave it hang there, is how you might be able to do that. So one part on the header, one part on the face of the door naturally. I know that I misspoke earlier and I apologize. Now, there is a link below this video to some supporting documentation, and let's take a closer look at that. What we'll do is we'll switch to the screen view in order to do so. So this is the item here that we are indeed looking at. Crash chain vinyl cover, 3 number 8 by 3/4 sheet metal screws, 21 3/4 inch length. Yeah, okay, something in that range. Zinc plated. When you buy one, we'll ship you one. A little factory image of what it looks like, without the vinyl cover generally, what it looks like. There's a link to the template, and this template, however, is not for really the item that we're looking at. The CC100 is the item that this pertains to, but this is for this mounting point is for their commercial version of crash chains, which I'll show you in a moment. There is, speaking of that, the link here to the product catalog. That will allow us to get to their CC-100. If you just do a find function for CC-100, you'll find that item, but you will indeed find other crash chains in here as well. So if we search for crash chain, I thought that we would. This must be under a particular residential hardware catalog. Okay, so let's take a look here and find that heavy-duty crash chain. And what we'll do is we'll open up a new tab here, crash chain. Yeah, so it's the HDCC is what it is, heavy-duty crash chain. And here's an example of that. So that is in the product catalog that is called Door Controls, and I'll show you that catalog in a moment. But these heavy-duty versions, they're literally a much more substantial chain. It's actually welded chain link, and then a more robust spring assembly that's here. These are nice because, well, they're not nice. I don't like crash chains. I don't think that they safely control a door, because they don't. I've had people walk in and say, your crash chain broke. Okay, how did you break it? What do you mean, how did I break it? I didn't break it. Well, turns out that someone backed into the door when the door was ajar and kept going. So yeah, the crash chain broke. Severe weather conditions will break these. As I said earlier, I've seen that. So these are the HDCC, and then you have to talk about the length that you want. They do have 3 lengths. HDCC. They're going to have 20.5 inch, 25.5 inch, and 30.5 inch. 3-foot doors, bigger than 3 foot, smaller than 3 foot. That's how you would do that. Then you could also order them with through bolts that would allow you to through bolt that through the door, and those options are listed in our site to order them with through bolts. Okay. So the rest of that product catalog is here. We'll show you other residential door hardware accessories, not only residential, but some commercial material as well. You would certainly see door guards like this in hotels and door viewers and whatnot. Be mindful, these are neither fire rated nor handicap compliant. Just a fun fact about that. Elbow catches, handrail brackets, etc. There's our crash chain. Now the link here to the manufacturer's page, that's very handy because it will allow us to review not only all of the Danjo products that we sell by way of that horizontal navigation there, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to their most current product catalog. It's a decade old at this time. These are all the subsections of that, and that controls catalog is where we found those heavy-duty items. Accessory hardware is where we found our CC100. If you know the name Danjo, you probably do for wraparound plates and latch protectors, but yes, they make crash chains, and they make pivots and hinges and door stops and flat goods like push plates and pull plates, things of that nature. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Now again, where we're going to use this, a residential application most certainly, or a very light door. You might have, I've seen restaurants that have back doors, and they'll leave those doors open for ventilation, but there's a screen door, a storm door on the outside of that. And you can throw a crash chain on that sort of application, even though everything I just said is certainly not egress code compliant. Having a storm door on such an application. Residential applications, very light duty projects. Very nice quality item from a very nice quality company. Good people over at Danjo. I would recommend that you review their entire product line. What's nice about them is that they're nimble. The person that you speak to on the phone can generally do technical support, price check, stock check, things of that nature. They're old-fashioned hardware people. They understand hardware, and they do a good job with it. If you have any questions on the Danjo number CC100, Zinc crash chain, residential applications, or any other Danjo product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.